It's a continuance of hearing 2023-7 regarding 231 Wheeler
Not
Street.
ready to answer all
Comprehensive permit application pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, for a 300 multifamily residential unit development. Petitioner is the Homes at Murphy's Farm, LLC. Welcome, attorney.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Don Bornstein, attorney for the applicant. Also with me tonight is Kevin O'Brien, the principal for the applicant. For tonight, we only have a brief status update for you.
Okay.
We haven't been before you in a while, but
All right.
we thought it made sense for us to come to your meeting and to update status.
Okay.
I believe your planner also has some information for you.
Right, and I think, I don't know whether it makes sense to discuss first the letters that we are in receipt of before we continue with that, or what would the recommendation be?
We can, I think at this point, because they only came in yesterday, I believe, the letter.
Right.
It's been shared with council, but council obviously hasn't had a chance to really look into it.
Right,
So I don't know whether we should, Karis, I would turn to you. Should we read it or talk about it or put it for next time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Community Development Director indicated, I received the letters yesterday afternoon. I do need to do some analysis, and I would prefer to hold discussion until I have completed that analysis, and then can present my thoughts and share that with the board. I can do that in a written legal opinion to the board
Okay.
in advance of the next meeting,
Right.
And as soon as I can.
Excuse me?
do it.
Oh, maybe that's out there, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting.
So that would be my recommendation for this
Right,
evening.
okay, and I appreciate that. Certainly, we're looking for a legal opinion, not just a guess, at such short notice as, we've been given. Would have been nice to have had that a little earlier, but, timing is what it is, it's.
Yeah,
who knows?
and I'm not going to give you a guess.
Right, yeah, no, we knew that. So thank you very much. And for those in the audience, what this was about was we had received an email or a mailing from an attorney who has some questions about how this process should continue forward based on certain things that have come to light. So, but we will be tabling that discussion for now until we can get a proper legal opinion from our town council, and then we'll take that up at some future date. I don't think that mitigates anything, or if there's still some viability to the issues that were brought up, then we'll address that at that time. But in the meantime, we will continue on with the presentation. So back to you, attorney. Thank you for the interruption.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one comment on that. Would the town council's opinion be made available to the public before our next meeting session, or how are we expecting that process to work? I, of course, would like an opportunity to comment on those issues as well.
Sure. Council?
Initially, my opinion will come to the board, and then we can discuss the next steps. We can determine if we need to have any meeting. I don't know. Again, it depends on where it all lands as to what exactly the next steps are. Ultimately, at some point it will be public, but I can't promise when until I actually know what the issues are. But I understand that there's interest from the public and, of course, the applicant in what I have to say.
Right.
And we'll take that into account.
Yep. Okay. Very good. All right, attorney?
Okay, thank you. Again, Don Bornstein for the applicant. Our target for this meeting was to talk about sewer and water capacity, traffic, and to give you an update on our civil engineering design. On sewer and water capacity, I believe you have a memo from Director Hoover in your packages for tonight. The applicant had a chance to meet with her and town staff. It appears that both sewer and water capacity for the project have been confirmed and are available. I believe there's a notation in that memo that, of course, the possibility for pump stations or other things specific to the ultimate project design may need to be considered by the applicant, could potentially be the subjects of conditions of the comprehensive permit. That's completely expected by the project team. So I believe water and sewer capacity has been addressed. If there's more discussion that's needed on that, I'm happy to hear that tonight.
Right.
As far as traffic, you'll recall that the applicant has submitted the project team's traffic study that's been submitted. It's also been peer reviewed. The peer review comments came back. There's a fairly lengthy letter from VHB in your package. I'm going to summarize the conclusion, though, as VHB wants some more data and information from the project team. There are, I believe, 5 different bullet points of either other intersections they want studied, or more or different traffic counts or longer traffic counts. There's several sort of technical questions about the universe of information that should be reflected in the traffic study, similar to the discussion I think you had a little bit for the last project, which was what's been studied, what's behind the traffic study. We met with our traffic engineer yesterday. Traffic engineer had no real concerns about those items, did need to speak to the peer reviewer to get some more input and direction on exactly the granular information on the data information that your peer reviewer wants. It doesn't look like it's going to be a sticking point. They'll need to put their heads together and figure out precisely what needs to be done. There's actually some field survey work that's been requested. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem to nail down questions about site distance. Like I said, some additional traffic counts seem likely, but I think the 2 traffic engineers will need to get together and agree on just the specifics on those things. Doesn't seem like an issue for continuing to move forward. On civil peer review, we have confirmation from the civil engineer for the project that the civil design plans are at a 75% completion stage. We've seen 75% plans, and we've been informed that the 100% plans would be done within the next 2 weeks. So we're expecting to be able to submit 100% civil design to the board in 2 weeks.
All right.
So we have been busy, although we've not been in front of you. We have been busy in the interim. We've been making progress on those technical documents, and we expect to continue to do that at a fairly brisk pace.
Okay. All right.
I also have received just today the letters that are referenced. I have not submitted a formal comment to the board. Suffice it to say, I have some heavy skepticism on the 2 primary points that are made in those letters. I'm going to be happy to provide a more formal discussion of those items at a future time.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. With the traffic study, that's, I guess, going off sort of the potentially raw numbers of, 300 units times X number of drivers. Given the plans are not yet really gelling, well, maybe they are with the civil engineering plans coming forth, but is that likely to change anything with the traffic?
No, I don't think it is. There is one comment between the peer review engineers as to the sort of base information they should use, how they should categorize the project in terms of running the rest of their calculations. I think that's something that peer reviewers will work out between themselves. But going from the schematic plans that you've seen before to the detailed engineering plans, I don't think that's going to alter the traffic impact analysis. Ultimately, the study of how the roads work within the project could change as we discuss the project and it evolves in civil design. But the focus of that traffic study is really off-site traffic impact, both safety and volume. And I don't think that is affected by the civil design.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any questions? Oh, sorry, ooh, somebody wants to preempt. Yes, Allison, go ahead.
So one of the comments I think that the peer reviewers made is that typically a development of this type would have a mix of unit sizes.
Yes,
So they've commented, and I think it's something the board can talk about and get more folks' opinions on. One of the things that they've recommended is potentially a market analysis to kind of show or justify that continuing to look at and analyze 300 four-bedroom units makes sense, that that's a viable, design from a market demand.
Is that something that, like, I know we, as a board, have no overview of the pro forma, for example, of the applicants. Does this sort of market analysis encroach on that at all, or do you see that as still a tool?
Kick that one to town council.
I knew that was coming my way.
Gotta earn your keep.
Thanks. So I think that this type of analysis is relevant to a lot of the underlying issues to the project that you're being asked to approve. And while it gets close to the pro forma, I'm not sure that it encroaches. I would like to dig around a little bit and see about other instances where this type of analysis has been done before I give you a final determination. But I don't, it doesn't offend my sensibilities based on my gut reaction to how it's going to impact the project overall that you're going to have to consider and how that fits into the local needs in Dracut.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we should be, at some point, once we get the civil engineering drawings and things, that's when we can, I think, start looking at that, right? Would that be the timing? Too early to look for that now?
So I think it's a study that the applicant would need to, or information that they would need to speak to and provide us with something.
Right.
So that I would leave that to them to determine when they have the right information to do that.
Okay. So we should maybe offline, you and the attorney can talk about some of those details as far as getting it started, or
Potentially,
more-
I mean,
more than-
ultimately, what's required or requested is a board decision.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm happy to continue conversations with the applicant. I don't know what their, amenability, if you will, to this is.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just note, we're expecting to get a little more feedback on that topic and the rest of the topics in the VHB peer review, the comment letter we have so far, once the two traffic engineers have spoken. So I think we'll have a little more information about what VHB is requesting with that, once the engineers have spoken to each other.
Right. So you think that's going to address the marketability? Was that where you were going with Allison? Or the analysis?
So I
market
think there are
analysis?
two ways that this could go. One could look to understand the mix of units, or one could talk about the engineering analysis for the mix as it's proposed now. So it very well may be that the traffic engineers will, have a collaborative approach that makes sense to all of them.
Right. Okay. Joe, did you have?
Just to
comments?
add some color to this,
Sure.
the issue right now between the traffic engineers is, and was mentioned in the prior presentation, the traffic engineers used Institute of Transportation Engineers data. And the ITE basically collects data on all sorts of projects, from residential projects to commercial projects to retail projects or what have you. And within the residential projects, they break those down into types of residential projects: single family, townhouses, mid-rise apartments, high-rise apartments. This project, in its configuration and the fact that it's all 4 bedrooms, doesn't fit into any of those categories. So the question is, why doesn't this type of project exist? Townhome, 4-bedroom, all, from the standpoint of my experience in the past 25 years in doing these types of projects, I haven't seen one exist where you have this configuration and every unit is proposed as 4 bedrooms. So it begs the question, is there a market? And the trepidation here that we're all kind of dancing on is that an appropriate question for the board to ask the applicant to approve out? Or is it his responsibility, along with the subsidizing agency, to determine the feasibility of a given project? I think there's enough here, and especially given the kind of category that's not having a category to fit into, to determine what the trip generation is going to be from this project. I think at least the board should request some data, some information from the applicant as to the justification or the mindset of proposing all 4-bedroom rental, so that it might then drive the resolution between the two traffic engineers as to, okay, what should we call this? What should we use for a per unit trip generation? Because the trip generation from a single-family home, a 4-bedroom single-family home, is vastly different than a mid-rise apartment with a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. Because ITE doesn't differentiate within a project how many bedrooms. But we all know that developers aren't building single-family homes with 1 and 2 bedrooms, right? They're building 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. But on the apartment side, apartment developers are building 1 and 2 bedroom apartment communities with some 3s. But there aren't, that as far as I know, projects that have all 4 bedrooms. And so that's what's driving this question. A full market analysis would answer the question. Show us that there is a market in Drake for 300 4-bedroom apartments, and then move on from there. But to ask him to do that, I think would be stepping over a line. So it has to be kind of within context. Right now, the question has risen within the confines of the traffic analysis, because that's all we have. But that's where it's starting. But it is a question that's out there. Is there a market for this?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Was there anything more you had? Okay. Right. Anything further?
Nothing further from me, Mr. Chair.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Anybody from the board have any additional questions?
Not no.
Okay.
Oh, you,
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah. Getting there.
Got anything?
This one, last one I did.
Okay. If we'll take time now to see who in the audience would like to speak. Please raise your hand. Okay, right here, first table.
Hello. My name is Heather Raskowitz, and I reside at 1046 Methuen Street. I've been following this comprehensive permit application process since the beginning. The board opened the public hearing on this permit on August 24th of 2023. It's now March 21st, 2024, and the developer still has not submitted plans for this project. At the last meeting, an extension to May 20th was granted, and we were assured that they would receive plans at the end of February. There are still no plans. The applicant submitted an application for a comprehensive permit to Lunenburg ZBA in September of 2022. This was for a 40B development of similar size and scope as the Murphy Farm project, and he's farther along in that project than he is here in Drake. That said, the developer is well-versed in the timelines and requirements of this process, yet still has not submitted any plans to this particular board. I'm standing here in front of this board to ask you, at what point is this board going to say enough is enough and deny this application on the basis that there are no plans to review? Without plans, I feel there is no project. Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, this similar question came up at our last meeting in December, and I believe town council had responded at that point in time. I can try to summarize in that, the comprehensive permit process is a process. There's no defined off-ramp for it, per se, meaning, it's meant to get us from the application to a decision. There's no defined time limit for that. There's a minimum time limit that is set, but with extensions for various reasons, et cetera, that can happen. And, I think, yes, I can agree that they're, providing of information has been slow, but that is not a justification for terminating the process. And town council, if there's anything you would feel like adding, or if that's sufficient, that's.
I think that's sufficient for now, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else wish to speak? I know there was no hand from somebody in the back, if you'd like to come up. All right, Dina?
I'm Dina Tupin. I live at 12 Rinsey Road in Dracut.
Welcome.
Hi. This is just about the traffic study. I tend to drive, to come home, I tend to come down Route 113, and then I take a left onto Wheeler Street. You pass Hickory Hill Golf Course, and then you take a left. And I've been doing that for 30 years now. And most times that I take that left-hand turn, especially at night, I'm actually quite scared. And many times I will keep an eye on what's going on behind me, and I'll accelerate quickly if a car's coming around. There's a figure in the traffic study that shows it's a blind turn, so cars are accelerating behind you. So I tried to look at this whole time I've been looking at the traffic study, and I don't think that the traffic study fully addressed the danger at that location. It looks like that they're looking at traffic between the peak evening traffic hours between 4 and 5 at night. That's when it's considered peak evening traffic, according to the traffic study. Maybe that's standard policy for the way that you do traffic studies, but I think peak traffic hours, it's not just from 4 to 5. I mean, it's like 5 to 6. It goes later than that, too. It's heavy traffic. And at night it's dark, and it is dangerous. It does look like the average, I don't know where they get the information, but they say that there's an average amount of accidents that happen as a similar intersection. And apparently we fall below the average number of accidents at that intersection there. They said there was 13 accidents over the 5 years that their data is from 2016 to 2020, and there were 13 accidents at that intersection. And they say that comes out to an average of 2.6 per year or something. It did include 2020, which is COVID. But in any case, I question that. And apparently the data that was collected, I think it was one day in last March or something. I think that they could do more data collection than just collecting data on traffic over one day. But if that traffic intersection is already listed as a grade of E on that grade system, A through F. So it's already an E, and with the proposed project, it does turn into an F. The conclusions of the report keep saying, don't worry, it would have been an F no matter what, but I think that it's a very significant increase in traffic at that intersection, because according to one of the figures in the report, it says that there's an average of 972 cars going westbound, and then at night, and then this would be an additional 113 trips at night, taking that left-hand turn, something like that. But that's a fairly significant increase in traffic from 972 to 113. If you start looking at the little numbers, it's a significant increase in traffic for this development. And I just don't think that I think it was glossed over in the report. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very significant increase in traffic at that intersection. And I do think we'll see a lot more accidents. I know that I've been hit. I've been in an accident at that intersection before. Mm-hmm. And I've seen plenty, especially when you come down the road and it's slippery. I did slide into the road one time coming down that road. It just happens. It's just a it's the most dangerous intersection I've ever encountered, and I'm a very careful driver. So I guess that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak? Sure, sir.
I will just say, Chair, in response to that, that the peer reviewer mentioned that intersection, and that in looking at their letter, they have some of the similar concerns. So I think at this point, kind of once there's some more conversations there, it may help to resolve some things.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes,
My
sir.
name is Rick Bruni. I live at 2 Paddock Lane. And from the Mass website, marketability was one of the factors that decides the viability of such a project. So it's interesting that you floated that around like, well, we'll see if that works or not. And I'm wondering if all the apartments have 4 bedrooms and it's never been considered before, it's never been legislated or determined or anything else before, specifically for that reason, that someone down the road is going to say, well, let's just build it and find out.
Yeah, no answer.
Don't have an answer for that. Another question is this thing's dragging on for so long, eventually, yeah, no one's going to show up. Is that when it's going to get passed? Because at the beginning, there was all this talk about 90 days to go from stage to stage to stage.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, how many, 6 months later?
Just as a point of reference, that means nothing to anybody here. As a member of this board, we've had at least 2 40Bs that were protracted. One of them, believe it or not, went on for approximately 6 to 8 years. Okay, and then we had another one that was at least 2.5 to 3. So I mean, what we're at now, we're not approaching those figures yet. Doesn't mean much of anything, but these have a life of their own that, it's a process that's mandated by the state that we get from A to B. Doesn't mean we have to make a certain decision that we approve it or deny it, one or the other. It's all done based on the merits of what's presented.
The constantly evolving merits from
Well,
design and everything. So
Exactly.
if there is a problem that's insurmountable, a month from now or 2 years from now, it will be surmountable.
Not necessarily. But if it's insurmountable, that's a point where the board looks at it and then denies it.
Like the marketability.
What's that?
Well, but that's never been considered before for the 4-bedroom structures. It all seems really, it seems like it's feeding on itself. And
It's just another tool that we can use to help assess things.
to help what?
Assess, things of this 40B.
And just keep it alive.
We're not keeping it alive just to keep it alive. We're keeping it alive because this is the process that we have to go through.
And the state mandates that if you're going to get aid from them, you have to have a certain amount of this type of housing.
No,
No,
that's
you're
that
confusing
with the
MBTA with 40B.
Yeah. This is a comprehensive permit which has been established since 1969 that calls for each community in Massachusetts to maintain or reach 10% of their housing volume in affordable housing.
Or what?
Or nothing. Drake has never made its 10% in the last, 50-something years? So we're still working our way through it. And it's one of those things that the state wants the towns to work at providing affordability in their housing, but they're not going to hold us hostage for not attaining that. There's no penalty if we don't ever reach our 10% affordable housing rate.
So the motivation here is to build affordable housing.
Well,
That's the purpose of 40B.
right, so
Right.
can I add a little bit
Sure.
of clarity,
Go
and
ahead.
then I'm sure Karis could even correct me. We're under a rule, a state law that says we have to have 10% affordable housing based on the number of housing stocks we have, right? I believe that number is 12,100, and we need 1,210 affordable housing units, subsidized housing units, SHI, if you go on the DHC website. If we're under that amount of housing, which we are now, we have roughly 5% affordable housing stock, a developer can come in and propose a development, residential development, that does not meet our local regulations. Certainly, he's much denser, and he maybe have a number of things, that don't meet our requirements, but he's allowed to propose a development, provided he provides some information, financial information, to a subsidizing agency, which he has. That then gets submitted to the town, and the town, by law, has 180 days to review it and issue a decision. Now, that timeline is going to change, and Scott mentioned we've had some that come on for years. Now, in the end of this process, we have two choices. We ultimately can approve this project, or any project, or deny the project. If the project gets denied, there is a separate housing appeals court set up just to hear these hearings of denied cases, either by the applicant or by the town, where he can go then and get his permit from the state. So just because we issue a decision doesn't necessarily mean it's the final decision. He may not like an approval because it has too many conditions, and they could certainly go and appeal that. But we may not like the project at all and deny it, and he can certainly go appeal that. So there's no carrot and stick like the MBTA, where we're gonna lose funding if we don't approve this. This is not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is the fact that what the state wants us to do is negotiate and get the best deal, right? I think, Joe, you said that before, the best kind of project we can figure out. And then at that point in time, is it palatable to the 5 guys and gals up here who are gonna vote on this thing? And if it is, then we would approve it. If it isn't, then we would deny it. But that doesn't mean it's the end. If we deny the project, he's going to go to the state, if he so chooses, and then they can decide whether they want to approve the project or not.
Could I
Sure.
add just a
Karis?
brief comment?
Yes.
Yeah, the carrot and the stick here is that, as Brian said, with respect to a project under the comprehensive permit statute, 40B, where the town has not met their 10%, and Drake currently is at 4.93%, you can have a project that comes in and is allowed to proceed exempt, essentially, from local zoning requirements. Once you meet that 10%, the town is in a safe harbor, and projects don't get that automatic exemption to waive the local zoning requirements. So that's the balance. Towns that have met their 10% come in, and 40B projects and processes are very different because you no longer get the waiver. You have to comply with local zoning at that point. Here, because Drake hasn't met its 10%, the developer gets waivers and gets to be exempt from local zoning. That's the very brief overview, and that's the carrot and the stick.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Sir?
My name's Mark Dion. I live on Brigham Avenue. And I have a question here. They're saying this 40B needs to be affordable housing. What's the rent on a 4-bedroom unit? Is that affordable?
Well,
A 2-bedroom unit, just let me finish, please. A 2-bedroom unit in town is what, two grand a month?
I have no idea.
Anybody? It's at least that. So what's the market rent on a 4-bedroom? And at 80% for this 40B? Where are they gonna, no one's gonna be able to afford that.
Well, okay, we're getting off the topic of what,
Well, it is how is that, how is a 4-bedroom unit gonna be affordable?
okay, Karis?
Do you mind if I take that briefly? The standards for affordability are set by the state, and the rents that are required are negotiated with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, what used to be DHCD, based on market conditions and then income, and it's a complex calculation. But the town doesn't set the rate, the developer doesn't set the rate, the state sets the rate for what the affordable rents are. And sorry,
No, go ahead.
affordable is for people with moderate income or low and moderate income, depending on what level of adjusted gross income is used. This is a 80% AGI project, so that's really a moderate income affordability level.
And realize that all the units aren't affordable. You know, it only has to establish 20 to 25% of them as being affordable.
So once again, what's the rent on a 4-bedroom unit?
That's going to be
And
established,
with
that,
the-
you're talking about a market rate unit, and therefore that's going to be established by the applicant.
And you're gonna have, what's the average family? Parents and a couple of kids?
Again, we're talking about
4
things,
bedrooms?
these things are economic things that, you know, do not apply to our considerations. You know, we have no control over what he's going to charge. You know, we can only control, what the design is, or help with the design, or traffic, whatever. We're looking at things that, speak to the safety and health issues that the town might have.
How many entrances are gonna be in and out of this project? Just one?
Attorney? I've lost track myself.
The current plans have 3 different access points.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
I did my homework.
Okay, over here.
Good evening. My name is Linda Hayes. I live at 32 Wilshire Circle. I would respectfully like to request that the board read the letter that was submitted by Attorney Dennis Murphy from Hill Law on behalf of the residents. This is a public hearing. Our attorney has submitted a letter. We would like it read into the public record. And if you choose not to read it, I'm more than happy to read it. But we think it's very important that people in the community who might not be able to come to this meeting but watch it on TV or online will know what that whole conversation was about when you were discussing with Attorney North about her reviewing it and coming to a conclusion. We think it's really important. It's very difficult to follow many of these meetings, and particularly because certain topics come up and there's a discussion, but the public's not fully informed, which is fine because obviously we'd be here all night if you informed us of every single thing you discuss. But this is a very important letter from our vantage point. Would you give me the opportunity to read it now?
Just a couple of questions. Part of your argument is that you want to read it so that people at home know about it. We have not read it here, so the people even here don't know about it.
Right, okay. So if I read it out loud, they'll hear too. So everybody will know.
That's right.
And they'll know what Attorney North is going to review and come back to you with an opinion on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can read it. Attorney, you have any issues with reading it?
It's up to the board.
Okay. Do you want to go on with anything else first before?
How about we vote on this, Scott?
What, vote
Can
on
we,
reading it?
can we, well, at least take a poll, what we want to do with this? I personally don't want to read it, because I've just got it, I've read it, I'm gonna get a million questions on it, and I have no advice from counsel
Right.
about what this really means. I don't, I'm not an attorney.
Chairman, can I ask one question?
Sure.
This letter was submitted to the town?
It was submitted to the ZBA.
Yeah.
Was this posted publicly?
No, it has been posted
So
publicly.
I would ask the question how you got a copy of it.
Because I am associated with the group that has asked Attorney Murphy to send the letter.
It will be posted as part of the materials, however.
Well,
It's my understanding, I could be wrong, I don't know, I'll ask Attorney North. It's my understanding if a public board receives a letter, it's part of the public record.
It is part of the public record, yes.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it has to be read into the record.
No, it doesn't, but it is part of the public record.
Correct, and it will be posted with all of the other public documents. It's up to the board whether they wish to have the letter read into the record today,
okay,
We just got it. I mean,
right.
yesterday afternoon.
really,
I think this is some of the
I just opened it up
difficulty,
at 3 o'clock this afternoon. so-
and this is why generally we require that information come in 3, 4, 5 days, ideally a week
Mm-hmm.
prior, so that there is a chance to review,
Right.
digest,
Mhm.
get legal opinion, that kind of thing.
Right.
This came in yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let me just be clear on this. Whether we read this in the record or not, this is certainly one attorney's opinion. And I guarantee 100% that the attorney sitting right there is going to have a 100% complete different opinion when he does respond, and he will at the next meeting, I'm assuming, to what this says. So I would rather let us digest it, get our actual legal opinion from our counsel, and then we can kind of debate at that time when we have some education. I'd rather do that than spread a bunch of potentially false rumors, not knowing if this is true or not, having it read into the record. Listen, I hope all this is true. I just don't know if it is.
One
Okay,
question.
that aside, I guess what I would like to know then is, since it is part of the public record, when will it be posted?
Right, I was gonna ask that. When do you figure this would go up on the website?
I can put it up there tomorrow or Monday. I don't,
Mhm. All right,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Could I ask another question?
Sure, oh, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
I was confused a little bit by the discussion about the market feasibility or
Market
study.
analysis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the marketability analysis.
Right.
So it's my understanding that this actually was raised by the peer reviewers for the traffic study. Is that correct? This point was kind of raised through that traffic study when the peer review?
I thought it was raised by Joe.
Yes, well, no, what Joe said was the peer review, this project doesn't fit perfectly
Correct.
into a slot that identifies a 4-bedroom multifamily rental project. So that's the question. So you can take it.
I'm just wondering, whose idea was the marketability study?
I had talked to Allison about it, and it just, from the standpoint of helping understand the feasibility, not the feasibility, but the likelihood of 4-bedroom units with regards to the impacts. And right now, what's been brought up is the impacts of traffic, and are the numbers that are being purported by the applicant's traffic engineer representative of that type of a project. And the problem is there's no data
Mm-hmm.
on a townhome project with 100% 4-bedroom units.
Right. So I think if I can paraphrase, the people will look at this 400 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms in 300 units. At a minimum, or worst case, you could say there are maybe 4 or 5 additional drivers per unit, theoretically. And then you multiply that out, et cetera. And what you're saying is that there's no history of that being reviewed or understood to know whether that's really what we're talking about, or maybe it's only 2 or 3 people drivable per unit. Is that what you're sort of getting at?
Well, first is in a market analysis, you're looking at the demand versus the availability. So the availability of 4-bedroom apartments may come up and may shed light on what's happening in those projects. ITE, if you look at the number of data points that ITE uses, it's not an immense number. They don't have 10,000 different residential projects. They might have 500. So if there's data that ITE doesn't have, that can be gleaned from looking at the market, then that might be an avenue into solving the question. The other answer to the traffic conundrum may be just consider them all single-family homes. Because from a bedroom count standpoint, that's what the normal single-family home is.
Right.
But that may overestimate.
So that would be 300 single-family homes for the traffic study. I would like to say I agree with the point that was made that no one is building these projects with 4 bedrooms exclusively. So the question becomes, is that the direction we want to go in? And does that even make any sense? And what happens if there's no market for all these 4-bedroom units? A couple of other things I would like to, so I guess following that up, what did the board decide? I was confused. Did you make a decision about whether you're going to request that, or are you going to think about it?
Well, I think that's in our pipeline, but it's not yet at a point yet where it makes sense to do that.
So that in somewhat puts the traffic study in abeyance then, because if, as your consultant has pointed out, this could be important data and information that would be relevant in the traffic study.
Correct.
Then you aren't deciding yet whether to do the feasibility study, so it kind of puts the traffic study and all that information in abeyance.
Not really.
Well-
It's really up to the applicants as to whether they want us to go forward with the traffic study. Our opinion is to go forward with it. It's up to them if they want to spend money on that now, knowing that the market analysis may provide information that wants that to be reviewed again, which means would be.
Who would pay for the market analysis?
It's all done, but it's all going to be by the applicant.
So you're going to decide whether or not you're going to require that further down the road?
So at this point, it's premature until the peer review traffic engineer and the traffic engineer for the applicant have conversations and see what they can, provide forward as their experience, what they can resolve, what the questions are.
Right.
I don't think it's not clear that that's information that will ultimately be needed. It may be, it may not be.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it's relying on the traffic study to
Okay.
complete, and then.
So those conversations have to take place, and then you'll
Right.
go forward from there. Another question I had was, someone asked how many entrances or exits there were to this project, and the developer had responded that there were 3. And I think it's significant that we point out to you that the Methuen, one of those proposed, that third proposed exit would actually be in Methuen.
Right.
And the Methuen Zoning Board of Appeals has already stated that they're not going to approve that as a road. And they've already told the applicant that that's not going to be approved. And I'm really perplexed about these plans. So we have these plans on the table that have 3 entrances or exits. And yet, one of them is outside of Drake, so you really have no authority over the establishment of that.
Correct.
And the group that does is the Methuen Zoning Board of Appeals, who is now saying they believe they've met safe harbor and therefore can deny the entire project, and took a vote to deny it. Where the developer appealed, they appealed the decision. It went before the Housing Appeals Committee. The Housing Appeals Committee just said it's going to a full hearing. So if Methuen had
Full hearing of what?
a full hearing to determine, that was
Is
another.
there a question? Just wondering, was there a question at the end of this?
So this is one of the legal issues that your lawyer has raised that we will be looking at, and I'll be providing advice to the board on.
At this point,
But I'm just talking about the third entrance and exit.
so at this point,
I ha-
Methuen is in litigation.
Right.
And we have kind of a conceptual sketch. We don't have design plans. I really think it's premature to get into the detail of what those design plans may or may not show us. We simply don't know at this point.
Right.
But the developer just said that there'd be 3 roads.
Yes, but it's all contingent on the litigation that's going on between Methuen and the developer. You know, the state can override what Methuen says. If the state determines that
Right.
that Methuen doesn't meet the safe harbor accounts,
Right.
then the state is,
They can go for, they would be forced to go forward, but it doesn't mean they have to approve the other road either.
I'm sorry, say again?
Yeah, if the state if the state denied Methuen's appeal,
Correct.
said they didn't have safe harbor,
Mm-hmm.
then Methuen has to begin the process that you're in, and they have to go forward with the process.
Correct.
They don't necessarily have to approve the road. So I guess when I'm just, because
Well.
the road is really, according to Methuen, a driveway to 7.
That's outside of our
This is
condition,
not-
that's outside of our
Well, the
concerns.
7 units are actually in Drake, and the driveway would be in Methuen.
Yeah.
And so Methuen has already stated, for
Mm-hmm.
the record, at a public meeting, that they're not going to approve that.
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
Okay, and there's not much we can really argue more about this
All right.
subject
Good.
because
So I
it's in
just
litigation
wanted to
and,
point out, it's not definitive that there'll be
correct,
3.
it is not.
Okay.
You're right.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, have I asked you to come to the podium yet?
Or not.
Yeah, all right. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Yeah.
Josh Taylor, 110 Lincoln Lane, Drake. Excuse me. In regards to the letter that was presented to you, in the sake of transparency, I would suggest that you read it to the members of the room. You don't have to allow as chair to let anybody talk about it. You don't have to react. The board doesn't have to answer or anything, but just as if it was read off in community input, the board spoke about the letter. I think it would be relevant to read it off so that everybody understands what it is, the developer knows what it is, and your attorney can advise you guys how to respond to it at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. I mean, I understand, your sentiments and some of the others. We've already talked with Allison. She says she's going to have it put up by Monday. It's 2 days away, 2 business days away. Less because it'll be up during the middle of the day. But I think the other side of this, we're not trying to hide anything and not be transparent. I think as Brian had brought up, we're concerned about word of this getting out, people flying off the handle with all sorts of theories on what this might mean or not mean, and it may result in a rash of calls to town offices and to, maybe members of the board. I mean, that's the life we've volunteered for here, but I think all we're doing is asking for a little grace to let this be digested first, so that if people are going to be calling the members of the board, that we have something intelligent to feed back to you on, and not just say, okay, I don't know anything. We should, be getting something from town council. Won't be by Monday, but we'll be getting something sometime. But, at least Monday, people will see what this is. It's not that we're trying to hide anything, hardly. I don't believe in that. We're not a secret society up here. It's just that it try to alleviate any unnecessary interactions with people where we as the board aren't going to be able to feed back anything of substance, until we have a line of response from town council. Do you want to say something?
No, I would
Okay.
simply say thank you for your input.
Yeah. All right. Yes, sir.
Bill Hayes, 32 Wilshire. What I would like to point out is that the letter is relevant in a lot of ways, that if there aren't going to be 3 roads, right, it's going to greatly affect whatever the outcome of your traffic study is. There's no date for this hearing in Methuen. That's why you got that letter saying what it says. So this could all be, everybody could be spending a lot of money here and then have to start all over again and spend a lot of time worrying about it, because if you look at the drawings, the only thing relevant to Methuen for the 40B is the duplex. The road is a separate matter. It has nothing to do with 40B. And if they're not going to approve that road, no matter what happens, then your traffic studies are going to be null and void. So it's something to think about. That's all I'm telling you.
Right. And that will all, those were some of the issues that were raised, you know, in the letter, as you stated. And that is why our attorney is going to be reviewing it, and then she will be providing a response that, you know, we can then feed back to you and be made public as well, certainly. Yep.
2 Paddock Lane. Will this letter be censored or paraphrased or?
It goes in 100%. No, we don't redact
And then the
anything.
comments?
Pardon?
And then the legal comments will be posted along with it? Is that it? The legal explanation?
Once the board receives them.
Yeah.
They're at a public meeting, they will become public.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Let the record show no further hands were raised. I think the next task would be to choose a date certain. Unless attorney, obviously you might want to respond in any fashion or anything further to say on any of the topics discussed tonight.
I have no response to any of those
Okay.
comments, Mr.
All right.
Chair.
Very good. Thank you. All right. I know at the previous comprehensive permit hearing, we continued to May 2nd, I believe. And I presume everybody else still can make May 2nd?
Nothing's changed.
Okay, so
Still
we'll be.
can't make it.
Yeah.
So
I was hoping.
On this one, I'll just interject that initially, I don't know if this is still the case, they had suggested a continuance to May 16th, which would be our regular meeting, your regular meeting, excuse me.
Okay. Oh, right, yeah.
And then the other topic that needs to be talked about is currently the review window for this project ends on May 20th. So we need a significant extension of that review window in conjunction with granting a continuance.
Right, okay. So, I mean, you know, we could continue to May 2nd, or would you prefer to go to the 16th?
May 2nd is fine. That's
Okay.
a great date, and we're happy to give a further extension of the board's review period.
Okay, all right. Excellent.
Do we have to ask for a specific time, Allison, as far as the extension of the approval, or?
That is up to the board. You can make a request, you can
I mean, we
make
should
a
probably
requirement.
certainly have into the summertime minimum, I would think.
Yeah.
Additional 90 days?
So August timeframe, is that?
Yeah, I would suggest a 90-day
Yeah.
extension of it, yeah.
So that would be out to the third, at least beyond, at or beyond the third Thursday of August.
I will just interject briefly that part of the setup that we had structured was for logistical reasons, so that the board wasn't dealing with 240Bs and all their regular business in one night. So we're now gonna, which is fine, we're gonna go back on that. We may have capacity issues. I don't know what spaces are available. And it's gonna be, you know, depending on what other business there is. That was the original reason that we weren't doing them all in one night.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see what, you know, how that, you know, what comes in, and is there things we can do with regards to that. Okay, so we'll continue to May 2nd at a time,
6:05.
at a time of 6:05 PM. I did forget to say PM on that first one, so. but
If
hopefully-
anyone shows up at 6 a.m., that's
Yeah.
their fault.
We can clarify that.
Power to them.
Yeah.
Early
So the location also is yet to be determined, but will be published publicly on the website, and also outside of Town Hall on their boards.
Okay, very good.
So-
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time.
Make a
Thank you.
motion to continue that.
Yeah, sorry, you're right, yes. Motion to have that continued?
I'll make a motion to continue this to May 2nd at 6:05 PM, and location to be determined later.
All right, very good. Second?
I'll second.
Oops, uh-oh. We go from this side. Who was that? Joe? All right,
Joe did.
Joe? All right, all those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, okay. All right, thank you all. That concludes our,
For drinking public access?
yeah, oh, yeah.
You want to read your letter on drinking public access?
We still have additional meeting information and material that we need to get through,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we need to continue on.
Right, and the public hearing at this point is closed.
So if
So-
members of the audience who aren't staying for the,
Continue, you're right. Sorry, my mistake. You're on.
members who are not staying for the elections, minutes, reports, if you could kind of move on so that the board can finish their work, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Joe.